In today's video, we're going to continue debunking sleep myths. And the sleep myth I'm going to talk about today is this idea that you should only go to bed when you're sleepy. And the most important part of today's video is going to be that I'm going to talk about this particular myth or advice in relation to long-term sleep problems and insomnia. If you have had only a few nights of not so good sleep, then it's a completely different situation. Often, the longer the sleep problems have been around, the more complex they become. And especially after 3 months of struggling, it becomes more and more complex. The more things you try and not succeed in solving the problem, naturally, the more complex it tends to become over a period of time. But it doesn't mean that you can't overcome your insomnia and sleep problems that have been around for a longer period of time. And in today's video, we're really going to look at how I even talk about this with my clients and how I would suggest you approach this suggestion, or how I look at it as a myth. Now, before we do that, I wanted to welcome you back if you're part of my community already. If you're brand new, then this is the time to hit that subscribe button below, hit that little bell as well so I can let you know when I post new videos. And let me quickly introduce myself. So my name is Beatrix Schmidt. I'm a sleep coach, a professional speaker, and the creator of the Sleep Skills for Life program, which is very much my way of helping clients with long-term insomnia and sleep problems to fully overcome their struggles and then future-proof their sleep so they don't have to struggle again. Hence, Sleep Skills for Life. I struggled with insomnia as well, so I know how it feels. I fully overcame my insomnia before I started working with clients, and that was 10 years ago. So I've been working with clients for just over 10 years, and more I tend to actually work with more complex cases where nothing seems to have solved the problem, or nothing seems to create consistently good quality sleep. So now that we've covered that, let's turn our attention back to this idea of, should you be going to bed when sleepy, or how do you even define what you're looking for? So this is where sleepiness is not something that we can incredibly clearly define. We all have a different idea of what that means. And I see this with every single client that I have this conversation with. So for some people, sleepiness means I'm yawning 2, 3, 4 times. For other people, sleepiness means that your eyes are droopy and you can't seem to be able to keep them open. Sleepiness can simply be that you're incredibly exhausted. So every single person has a different definition of what they're looking for when they're looking for this idea of sleepy. So in your situation, what I want you to first look at is, what is your definition of sleepy? What are you looking for in terms of maybe physical signs? What are you looking for in terms of emotions? So when you feel sleepy, often that has a relation to, let's say, maybe your emotions are calm. When you feel sleepy, maybe that's also got an additional layer of your mind not racing around and it's not wired. So have a look at what you mean by sleepy, and we're then going to be able to talk about it in a way simpler and practical way. So instead of focusing on this idea of sleepy, I really look at how we can recognize levels of relaxation. And the reason I look at relaxation, and I'll talk about it in a minute, is that when you're looking for sleepy, this label of sleepy, as you're approaching your nighttime or bedtime, clients actually often make an inappropriate decision. And I'll give you a couple of examples here. So if a client looks for sleepy and they're looking for, let's say, I have yawned 3 or more times, what they then doing is they then going to bed at that time. But it doesn't actually mean that their emotional calmness, emotional relaxation is also there, and mental calmness, which means mental relaxation, is there. So just because you're yawning, it doesn't mean that all the layers are aligned to it. Sometimes what can happen is as soon as the client says, oh my gosh, I'm sleepy, I must go to bed right now, pressure builds because you think you're going to miss your opportunity, or you think that that's the only way for you to be able to fall asleep in a quick or easy way. Or there often are some version of pressure attached to catching that time of sleepiness. And I've seen this with client work all the time. So if you're recognizing that you're, let's say, sleepy, let's say you yawned a few times, even thinking about, oh my gosh, this is the time for me to go to bed, can actually raise pressure up. It can actually become something that wakes you up. It can influence your ability to stay emotionally relaxed or mentally relaxed, because now there is this pressure around sleepy equals that's the best chance I have. Now, a lot of the times when I have clients who have had long-term insomnia and sleep problems, that means 3 months plus, and often it's years, not just months, you won't even know what true sleepiness is for you. The more you struggled with sleep problems, the less likely you're actually have enough energy during the day. It's more likely that you're more and more tired, more and more exhausted, often more and more nervous, as you have not been able to overcome the problems you have, the sleep problems you have. So sleepiness will have a very different definition when you struggled with sleep problems for more than months, a few months, compared to how I see this idea of, am I ready for going to bed and potentially transition into sleep? So even even though I sleep well all the time now, I don't look for sleepy. What I look for is stability in my sleep. Am I physically, emotionally, or mentally relaxed in order to have that transition to sleep? I'm a thinker type. If I've got something going on in my head that I haven't dealt with, that means I'm nowhere near sleepy in that version. I might, let's say, maybe yawn. I very rarely yawn either. So I might have this version of tiredness, or maybe every so often I might yawn once or maybe twice. It's very rare, but it doesn't mean that that's actually going to help me to create calmness in my mind. If my mind is overactive, no matter what the physical signs are, they're not actually going to help me to elevate that relaxation, the physical, the emotional, and mental relaxation. So that's one part, is instead of looking for sleepy, I'd like you to look for levels of relaxation in physical ways, emotional ways, and mental ways. That is a better way for you to understand whether or not you're even ready for bed. Now, the second layer here. If you're looking for sleepy, and that also means that, oh, if I'm sleepy, I'm going to fall asleep quickly. We all have a certain definition around it, what sleepiness means to us, what we're expecting from it. What can happen is, just because you recognize sleepy, but you haven't looked at these other three things together, once you actually climb into bed, that sleepiness has no longer stayed with you. So as you might move from the living room to your bedroom, or maybe you pop to the toilet, brush your teeth, whatever that might happen, by the time you end up getting to bed, you don't feel sleepy anymore, or this version of sleepy anymore. And I see this quite a bit with clients, where they caught this idea of sleepy, but it hasn't lasted long enough until they actually get into bed. Maybe your situation is different. Maybe you are able to retain some version of this sleepiness. But often the next question we have to ask, or I look at with clients, is how can you enable or practically increase physical, emotional, mental relaxation just before you climb into bed or while you are already in bed, so this is maybe a first couple of minutes, instead of whether or not you're sleepy. So if you look at relaxation and you measure towards relaxation, you can measure how close or far you are away from it. But if you have a very strict one definition of sleepy, often what I find with clients is they either say I'm sleepy or I'm not. So there is no scale of how close or further away I am from it. It's either you have sleepiness or you don't. So when we switch that to these relaxation measurements, you can tell if your level of relaxation as you're walking from your living room to your bedroom is increasing, meaning you feel more relaxed, or decreasing, maybe you feel more awake or more nervous, or maybe your mind starts sort of strategizing or racing around again. So sleepiness might have been there at the beginning of when you noticed it, but it doesn't mean that you can actually hang on to it in its most somewhat perfectionistic way. So what I say to clients when I have these conversations is sleepiness is really a version of relaxation. When you are fully relaxed, you are going to be able to recreate or create or enhance a version of this idea of sleepiness. Okay? Then we've got one more thing that I normally put into the picture. Just because you no longer feel whatever version of sleepiness you're looking for once you, let's say, climbed into bed, or maybe even in the middle of the night. So this is where, do you feel sleepy in the middle of the night? And some suggestions is that you might need to get out of bed if you don't feel sleepy. This is where this go to bed when sleepy starts to actually expand into other areas of sleep as well. If you don't know how to get closer to physical, emotional, and mental relaxation, the sleepiness is not going to be recreated. So if you take the earlier example, when let's say you're in your living room and you're watching something and you start to feel this version of whatever sleepiness means to you, it naturally builds. But it would have built over a period of time, not only appeared at the time as you recognized it. Now, if you don't know how to influence that elevation of feeling more and more of that, it's a version of relaxation, and you don't know how to create it, then once you climb into bed, you're not able to recreate it. So this is where you end up in bed and now you no longer feel sleepy. Some clients then end up getting out of bed and do their best to recreate sleepy first. But a lot of the times what I do with clients is it's not about looking for sleepy or not. It's about what that transitional process is so that you can get ready for bed first and then elevate amounts of relaxation so that it can actually help you to transition into sleep. That's what sleepiness in its purest form means. Sleepiness means that you are transitioning from your daytime, from being active, from being aware and awake, into this version of, let's say, the first few stages of sleep, which is the lighter stages naturally anyway. So when we say go to bed when you're sleepy, we need to make it more practical than that. With long-term insomnia and sleep problems, it's not as simple as sleepy. It's more about what that means in terms of physical, emotional, and mental relaxation and how you're actually able to enhance it and create it so that it can serve you, whether or not it's at the beginning of your night or in the middle of the night when you've woken up and maybe you want to get closer to this idea of quote-unquote sleepiness. So I hope that today's video has helped you to see why I labeled this as a myth, because I think putting pressure on this idea of looking for sleepiness when you've had long-term insomnia and sleep problems and you've already been tired and exhausted for more of the time than less of the time, sleepiness can actually mislead you into not going to bed at the appropriate time. Now, obviously, even picking the appropriate time is more complex. So I'm not going to be able to give you advice on like, well, at what point should you be going to bed? But what I want you to really, really look for is how can you create higher amounts of physical relaxation, emotional relaxation, and mental relaxation so that you can actually see this transitional calmness, and it is a version of relaxation, really, so that you can get to bed and feel like that transition is an easier way. You're not awake, you're not emotionally nervous, and so on. So if you've got any questions around this, feel free to reach out. I know that this particular one is presented in different ways from different practitioners. I don't work with this idea of sleepy because often actually it creates a lot more pressure than we want. And when somebody is too exhausted, they might not even recognize what sleepiness truly means in its purest form and most helpful form. And even when I go to bed, I'm not looking for sleepy. I'm looking for how physically, emotionally, mentally relaxed I feel, which means that it gives me the opportunity to deal with whatever might have risen up and might have gotten heightened. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't yet subscribed, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit that little bell as well so I can let you know when I post new videos. And if you have really enjoyed today's content, you have got the like button below as well. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.